Sony, yeah, let's watch this. Sony's 3 biggest mistakes. I'm gonna keep shitting on y'all with Sony until you guys switch over.
We've tackled Nintendo, we've tackled Sega, and now it's time to look at Sony's 3 biggest mistakes. Sony entered the video game industry with the PlayStation in 1994 and has been a major player ever since. But they didn't get there without a few bumps in the road. So let's dive into what I think are Sony's 3 biggest mistakes of all time.
Let's see! Alright, how y'all feel watching this?
Anyone who has a
I'm not a PlayStation hater though. I'm loyal. I still have my PlayStation. I love PlayStation. It's just I've always wanted to Switch my whole life. So I'm just happy I made the switch.
PSP or a PS Vita is familiar with Sony's insistence on using proprietary memory.
And that's how you know it's cap, because for a second, wait, does the PS Vita? No, the PS Vita does not have this. But Nintendo trying to talk about some, no, we can't add Call of Duty because our thing can't handle it. Yes it can. Yes it can. And you would get more money out of it. Just stop the cap. They were just mad because
with Sony's insistence on using proprietary memory. You know, Sony has a long history of trying to use their own formats. Betamax, mini discs, digital audio tapes. But when it came to video games, Sony annoyed consumers by using its own memory formats.
You know what was also annoying? If you had an Elgato or you got any capture card, Sony set it up to where you cannot capture the fucking shit. You could not. And I thought about it. I was like, I don't know that many PlayStation players on like PS3 back then who was on okay. Let me rephrase. Let me get my words together. Back then, basically, I really saw Xbox players on YouTube. Like, they're the ones who always posted and stuff like that. Call of Duty, every game. It was always Xbox. But I never saw a PlayStation player, now that I think about it. And now I know why. Because you couldn't capture the fucking game. You couldn't capture the game with the Elgato. You had to get, like, a very specific HDMI splitter. Very. Because Sony fucking encrypted it to where you can't bypass it unless you get that very specific HDMI splitter. I went through hell. I was gonna record on my PlayStation 3. I couldn't because of that. I'm happy I switched OVO. Your PlayStation in the living room is not real. I don't even use that PlayStation anymore either. That's the sad part.
It started with the PlayStation Portable in 2005. Sony was in the memory card war, pitting its memory sticks against SD cards. All of Sony's...
It's because you got to get it from them. It's just like Apple is doing, like, the patent shit. So you can't get it from anywhere else. You can't get memory from anywhere else. You got to get it from them.
Electronics used memory sticks, camcorders, TVs, laptops, and more. So naturally, when they released the PlayStation Portable, Sony forced consumers to buy their memory sticks. But these were more expensive than SD cards. And of course, you needed one to save your games. Soon, SD card to memory stick adapters popped up to get around the problem. The issue got even worse with the PSP Go, which was a completely digital...
I do not remember that. Am I tripping for not remember that? I don't remember this one. That's like the phone, the flip phone from back then.
Digital version of the PSP. The system had 16 gigabytes of internal memory, which usually wasn't enough. By 2010, it was clear that SD cards would win the memory card war, and memory sticks slowly faded away. Surely Sony's next handheld would use the industry standard, right? Nope. Enter the PlayStation Vita, which used proprietary PS Vita memory cards. And of course, the cards were required to save games, download apps, games, updates, as well as store photos, videos, and music. The Vita had no internal memory.
Y'all play Call of Duty on that one? Did you guys get the chance to? Fun as fuck.
This was incredibly frustrating for several reasons. The first being that Vita memory cards were way more expensive than SD cards. An 8GB Vita memory card was $30. A standard 8GB SD card was only $10.
Taxing.
Second, the PS Vita was released in 2012, at a time when digital downloads had become a standard way to buy games. And for a handheld, it was even more common, since you don't want to carry around a bunch of games. So having a lot of memory was important. A 32GB Vita memory card cost an astounding $100. Sony claimed they used proprietary memory cards for compatibility reasons and to combat piracy. But it felt greedy.
I do
Sony's
get that. That does make sense. But still, come on, bro.
Consumer reputation
Could their cards go into other things, though? God.
grew. The idea of having to buy an expensive memory card just to use the Vita turned off potential buyers.
What the fuck was going on right there?
Memory card just to use the Vita turned off potential buyers. Just imagine buying a $249 handheld console along with a $100 memory card. The Nintendo 3DS,
that was my shit,
cost $170 at the time, used standard SD storage, and came with a 2GB card. And of course, people soon came out with adapters to use SD cards with the Vita, which required you to modify the console. It's funny how forcing people to use proprietary memory to combat piracy and hacking leads to piracy and hacking. It's too bad.
Greedy ass. They just try to find like some explanation
with a lot of potential. It did eventually find its own niche market, but it could have been so much more. Sometimes it felt like Sony didn't really understand the market. And this next mistake made that very apparent.
They really still don't. That's why they act as scary right now with Xbox.
I worked at GameStop during the PS3 launch, and I can personally vouch for how bad it was. Let's begin with their awkward E3 press conference in May of 2006. Sony unveiled all the details of the PlayStation 3 and showed off some of its games. This resulted in some classic moments.
It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer. Remember that one?
Genji 2 is an action game which is based on Japanese history. So here's this giant enemy crab.
At the end, they revealed the price. A 60GB PlayStation 3 would cost a whopping $600.
Oh,
a 20GB
my
version
God.
would cost $500. The Nintendo Wii was going to cost $249.
Yeah. So, again, people be talking about Microsoft. Oh, Microsoft's so greedy. Microsoft got money already. Like, they don't gotta be greedy like fucking Sony. Sony could actually do better too because Sony has other things. Like, don't they have the cameras and shit? Like,
the Xbox 360, which was released a year earlier in 2005, cost $399.
Yup. And it was better.
The reason the console was so expensive.
And that's why people, like, the only, like, thing people say in my comments on my, like, Xbox PlayStation thing is PlayStation has better hardware. I don't give a fuck. And I'm still gonna pick Xbox.
Expensive? Blu-ray. It was the latest optical disc technology, and Sony was behind it. Blu-ray was competing with another optical disc, HD DVD. By putting Blu-ray in the PS3, Sony could establish a good user base and win the disc war. But that came at a cost. It cost Sony more than $800 to make a PlayStation 3, which meant they sold each console at a sizable loss.
Yeah.
Now, back in 2006, $600 for a Blu-ray player was a really good deal. The problem was that Blu-ray was also very new, and the general population wasn't quite ready to move on from DVD. Sony was too arrogant to see the problem. The PlayStation
still are. They're stubborn. They are stubborn.
PlayStation 2 had been the clear winner of the previous console generation, so they were feeling good. But retailers and analysts said the PS3's high price would turn off consumers. Sony way
Yeah, I know my dad did not pay that price. We for sure went to fucking eBay. 600 is crazy. 600 back then is actually crazy.
off the criticism.
Even now.
Sony Computer Entertainment President Ken Kutaragi said the PS3 was for consumers who think to themselves, I will work more hours to buy one. We want people to feel that they want it, irrespective of anything else. There was also
That is crazy. That is crazy. Bro said work harder. What if you didn't get that much on your paycheck? What if you literally couldn't? I know you, he's like, save. I get it, but it's like, damn, bro.
the PS3's controller. It looked identical to the PlayStation 2 controller, which was nice considering early promo shots showed this weird boomerang
that
design.
is crazy.
But it lacked an important feature, rumble. Yes, the PS3's controller had no rumble at launch. Instead, it had 6-axis, their new motion control technology. But why no rumble? Sony's Phil Harrison stated, Rumble, I think, was the last generation feature. It's not the next generation feature. I think motion sensitivity is. Sony also claimed Rumble would interfere with 6-axis. The more likely reason, however, was that Sony was tied up in a patent infringement lawsuit with a company called Immersion over the Rumble technology. Microsoft had already settled with Immersion.
Let's look it up. Rumble, Sony. It should pop up. Rumble app on Sony. Rumble. I'm confused. Oh. So, Immersion, that's who it is. Ah, fuck. Immersion. Are we on Google Shop now? No. Is a corporation, Emerging Corporation is a Ventura, Florida-based developer and licensor of touch feedback technology, also known as haptic technology. Emerging Corporation has been accused of a patent troll. What is a patent troll? Like they were trolling? A patent troll is a person or company that uses patents to sue other businesses for licensing fees, rather than creating or selling products. I mean, if they made that and patented it, then I don't get how it'd be wrong to sue. You get what I'm saying? Because if you patent something, here, let's see. Often do not manufacture a surprise. Okay. Okay, I see. But it's like if someone else would have that patent, would it...
Back in 2003 and paid them $26 million.
And they paid. Because again, it was a patent.
Sony finally settled with Immersion in March of 2007 and had to pay them more than $150 million. And surprise, surprise, they soon released the DualShock 3 controller, which had both rumble and 6-axis support. Then there were the launch titles. In North America, the PlayStation 3 had 13 launch titles. Resistance Fall of Man was the best of the bunch. Ridge Racer 7 was good, but not terribly exciting. Genji, well, we know about that.
I did not play
Attack
these.
its weak point for massive damage.
When I was at GameStop, PS3 owners were constantly disappointed with their game selection. But they held out hope for one that was coming soon. Lair. Just wait until
Never
Lair,
even heard of
they would
that.
say. Lair was being developed by Factor 5, the studio behind the popular Star Wars Rogue Squadron games. But then Lair came out, and it was kind of a disappointment. The biggest complaint? The awkward 6-axis controls.
Yeah.
To top it off, the PlayStation
Like, what is this, Wii?
3's online offerings felt way behind compared to the Xbox 360. Xbox Live was robust and easy to use. PlayStation Network was sluggish, and the online store ran off a web page. Seriously. One reporter said, it often feels as if the PlayStation 3 can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. The PlayStation 3 launched on November 17, 2006 in North America. And because it was the holiday season, it sold relatively well. But afterward, sales came to a halt. In its first full year on the market in 2007, Sony sold 2.56 million units. By comparison, Nintendo sold 6.29 million Wiis.
Oh
and
yeah,
couldn't
we
keep
was
up
on
with
that
the
shit.
demand. Microsoft sold 4.62 million Xbox 360s.
It's because all the shit they were trying to do. And then, I can't lie, they did have to pay a hefty fucking thing, but hey, they wanted the patent. Or, I don't even know.
IGN's review of the PS3 launch said, "You only get one chance at a first impression, and for this chance, the PlayStation 3 didn't dominate. It just showed up." Oh yeah, and remember the baby ad? Yeah.
I'm dead.
The baby ad. For
I
me
do not remember
personally,
that.
I went with the Xbox 360. It was cheaper, it played many of the same games as the PlayStation 3, and Xbox Live was fantastic. The PS3's launch was a wake-up call for Sony that they shouldn't rest on their laurels. Sony would eventually turn things around. Production costs lowered, which allowed them to drop the price of the system. They churned out some great exclusive titles, and they ran those really entertaining Dear PlayStation commercials. But they still had some kinks to work out on the PlayStation Network, because the flaws in that system created the biggest mistake Sony has ever made.
The PlayStation hack.
It all
What is
began
this?
in March of 2010.
I don't know what Rumble is. We found out what Immersion was. That was the company, and then they were called like a patent troll, which it's like I do see what they were coming from, but like if Immersion made something and then patented it, Sony can't get mad. You get what I'm saying? Because they were trying to patent their fucking memory cards. They were just mad that someone else got that shit before them, and then they paid out Immersion. I don't know who Rumble is. That might be not a streaming service. That's the new Rumble. I don't even know.
When Sony announced they were removing Other OS functionality from the PlayStation 3. Other OS allowed users to install third-party operating systems. The majority of users thought nothing of it, but the homebrew and hacking community were frustrated and began looking for ways to jailbreak the system. Less than a year later, on January 2nd, 2011, George Haas
Electronic
successfully
hacker.
jailbroke the PS3 and posted instructions online. Sony
Ew.
caught wind of it and sued Haas.
Yeah.
Sony claimed the jailbreak allowed people to play illegal copies of PS3 games. They also announced that anyone caught using unauthorized software on their PlayStation 3 would have their console banned for life from the PlayStation Network. From
Damn.
there, the fight only got worse. Hackers in an IRC chat combed over Sony's security and discovered
Hat.
it was flawed and outdated. On April 2nd of 2011, the hacker group Anonymous launched a distributed denial of service attack on Sony servers.
Should you go to jail for making your PS3 run your own programs? iPhone jailbreaker GeoHot altered the Sony PlayStation 3 console to run homebrew applications. He was then hit with a lawsuit after lawsuit. Should he be sued for agreement you didn't even make? GeoHot never signed into the PlayStation Network with his PlayStation 3 and never agreed to the terms of service that changed after he already purchased the system. Should you have your personal information revealed after watching a YouTube video? Sony demanded social media sites, including YouTube, to hand over IP addresses of people who visited GeoHUD's social pages/videos, as well as his PayPal account. Sony is not sounding like, I get where they were coming from. Brad, what's up? Welcome back. I get where Sony was coming from. They're like, no, you shouldn't be doing that shit because you need to buy our shit. But them always fucking doing shit like this always fucks them up even more. And demanding people's IP addresses is like such a violation of privacy. I can't lie. Like, I thought once you bought something, that's like, you own it. So I don't see why they can't jailbreak it. I guess it's because he posted it. Maybe if he just jailbroke it and then they peeped it, he wouldn't have gotten sued.
Retaliation for Sony's lawsuit against George Hotz. But 5 days later, Anonymous halted their attack, stating they didn't want to harm Sony customers, just Sony. People thought that was the end of it. But 10 days later, Sony was hacked again. Only this time, it was far more serious. Hackers broke into the PlayStation Network and stole personal information from more than 77 million user accounts, including names, addresses, usernames, passwords, emails, purchase history, and more. And most of the information was unencrypted. Sony detected the hack.
Oh, and that's why they need one of the gray hackers, white hackers, or black hat, white hat, all that shit to go in and see if they can get in and see what they can see within the fucking servers and shit. Like I don't think they were like trying to, yes, they probably did take the information, but I think they were just trying to expose how sloppy Sony was acting with all their information.
2 days later, and on April 20th, they shut down PlayStation Network due to technical issues. Later, they claimed they had been the
That's what they told y'all last time, this recent server down.
Target of an intrusion. And for a while, that was all the information the public had. But people wanted answers. What was going on?
That's Sony's problem. They never say what's going on. They never do. It's actually crazy that it's kind of repeating itself. They need to just be honest and say what's happening. It's like they're overthinking in the back. I don't know. I don't know why Sony moves the way that they do. They move very walkie. Walkie
How long would
slosh.
the network be down? Many thought Anonymous had brought PSN down again, but Anonymous denied any involvement. Finally, on April 26th, 1 week later, Sony announced they had been hacked and that the personal information of their users had been compromised. Then came even more bad news. They couldn't rule out the possibility that the hackers got access to people's credit card information too. People were stunned. Some were angry. They had trusted Sony with their information. Just how carefully did Sony safeguard that data?
Right?
Further, why had it taken Sony nearly a week to tell people that their data had been hacked? For that last question, Sony explained themselves via a blog post on their website. They said it took a while to realize what was going on. They found out about the intrusion pretty quickly, and that's why they shut the network down. But then they brought in outside experts, including the FBI. The investigation took several days. Only then did they understand exactly what happened. Governments around the globe took action. Lawsuits hit courts. The U.S. House of Representatives held a hearing on data theft.
Damn.
For that hearing, they demanded a detailed written explanation from Sony. They asked whether Sony had identified the hackers. Sony said no. They asked.
Hopefully they are more on their shit this go around. For real. Because you guys don't know you guys don't know if your information is gone. I guess that also counts for me. So we don't know if our information has been gone in a leak again. And if they just said, like they said last time, It was a technical error. They said that both times. Let's see how long it takes for them to come out with an actual you guys get what I'm saying. Actual thing of what happened.
How the hackers managed to gain access to so much information. Sony didn't go into detail. They also feared that publicly announcing precisely how they'd been hacked
I get what you're saying,
would give people a blueprint for how to hack similar companies. On May 1st,
but it is crazy because I feel like those competitors, it's easier to hack and you can jailbreak it. They just didn't like hide our data and information. Like they didn't do that.
Sony executives issued a public apology for the incident. But to make matters worse, the next day, they announced that Sony Online Entertainment had also been hacked, compromising some 25 million more accounts. It was an absolute
25 million?
mess. And it wasn't just that people couldn't play games online.
The change in music?
Apps like Netflix and Hulu went down. Small indie studios couldn't launch their games on the PlayStation Network. Even big retail releases were affected. Portal 2 was released during the attack on April 18th. And with PSN down, PlayStation users couldn't play online together. Many users canceled their credit cards out of fear that their information was stolen. In total, the PlayStation Network was down for 23 days. Sony estimated...
Oh my god! 23 days? I mean, that makes sense. After all that I'm just wondering if Sony is hiding something from the last fucking crash. Servers down. Operational issue. Is it? You've lied before! You've lied before.
They lost.
And we know you're scared to say shit. You're scared to say something whenever shit goes left. Maybe it's because of, I don't...
$171 million during the downtime. On May 14th, the PlayStation Network began coming back up. Sony...
PlayStation over Xbox? Stop the cap. I wish I had a soundboard. Never forget that. No. You guys know who's the superior. Xbox. We know this.
Also announced a welcome back program, which included a free month of PlayStation Plus, 2 free PS3 games, 2 free PSP games, and a year of free identity theft protection.
A year of free identity theft protection? Something they're already supposed to, like, give us security over? Last time y'all got 5 days worth of free, which I don't get how that, like, even did anything, because either way you're gonna have to pay the month you're in and then the month after. I feel like it didn't change anything. 23 days is crazy, though.
Sony was already behind in online functionality compared to their competitor, Microsoft. The PSN hack really didn't help their cause. To this day, no one has ever been arrested in connection with the attack. It took a long time for...
They probably recruited bro to the FBI. That shit always happens. Or they weren't in our country. But I do feel like, again, the hackers didn't use any of that information that we know of. But that none of that came out either. What was I gonna say? God damn it! What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I think the hackers were just trying to expose Sony. Because the guy who got arrested in the beginning, I feel like that started like a whole movement with them. Because they were like, what the fuck?
For Sony to regain the trust of their consumers. Their lack of transparency and flawed security were huge problems. The Deputy Commissioner of the British Information Commissioner's Office ripped Sony apart, saying, the security measures in place were simply not good enough. There's no disguising that this is a business that should have known better. It is a company that trades on its technical expertise. And there's no doubt in my mind that they had access to both the technical knowledge and the resources to keep this information safe.
Xbox has a monopoly on batteries, although they just won't admit it. I agree. I've said that because they could just take the fucking battery shit out and just have it be a regular controller that just needs to be charged with the fucking USB-C. Nope. It can be charged. You have to have it plugged in if you don't have batteries, basically. And I do agree. I think there's a partnership between AA batteries and Xbox, Microsoft, whatever. I will agree with you on that, Brad. I agree. But that's the only disadvantage people can say. Just the batteries. That's something people always say. The batteries, and then, oh, PlayStation has better software. Does it? It seems like they flex that they do, but they don't.
And being one of the largest data breaches in history, it's a no-brainer that the PSN hack is Sony's biggest mistake. So there you have it, Sony's 3 biggest mistakes. Which mistakes will I go over next? Atari? Microsoft? Maybe NEC? Who knows?
Good video. We will not watch the Microsoft downfalls.